My name is Alex. For the past 4 years, I worked as the lead logistics software architect for a mid-sized transportation company that was rapidly scaling up. I am the kind of guy who thrives on efficiency. While other people look at a chaotic spreadsheet and see a nightmare, I look at it and see a puzzle waiting to be solved. I spent countless late nights, fueled by cold coffee and cold pizza, coding a proprietary automated routing and database system. It was designed to streamline fleet tracking, cut fuel costs, and automate operator assignments instantly. In our industry, a system like that is worth millions. The company was owned by a man named Marcus. Marcus is the textbook definition of a corporate parasite. He is in his early 50s, inherited his father's initial logistics business, and treats his employees like disposable gears in a machine. He is the type of boss who drives a different luxury sports car to the office every week, wears tailored suits that cost more than my annual rent, and takes all the credit for his team's hard work while screaming at them for the slightest delay. He had zero technical knowledge, but he had a massive ego and an insatiable appetite for more wealth. For months, I kept Marcus updated on my progress. I told him this new software architecture could revolutionize how our entire fleet operated. He always brushed me off, telling me to focus on my daily tasks and stop wasting company time on pet projects. But when the company began struggling due to rising fuel prices and a chaotic, outdated database framework, Marcus suddenly changed his tune. He called me into his massive, glass-walled corner office and demanded to see a full working prototype of my system. I foolishly thought this was my big break. I thought my hard work was finally going to be recognized. I spent 3 days preparing a flawless presentation. I showed Marcus how the software worked, how it could seamlessly integrate transport lines, and how it automated data entry effortlessly. Marcus sat in his leather chair, his eyes gleaming not with appreciation, but with pure greed. He didn't say a word until the presentation ended. Then he stood up, adjusted his expensive tie, and told me to upload the entire source code, the encryption keys, and the database architecture to the main company server by Friday. He promised me a massive promotion, a senior vice president title, and a significant percentage of the equity when he pitched the system to a group of major Wall Street investors the following month. I trusted him. I spent my weekend migrating the codebase to the company's server network, believing my life was about to change for the better. On Monday morning, I walked into the office feeling on top of the world. But when I tried to swipe my ID badge at the front turnstile, a loud beep sounded, and a bright red light flashed. The security guard, a guy I had known for years, looked at me with a sad expression and told me my badge had been deactivated. Before I could even process what was happening, Marcus's administrative assistant walked out of the elevator holding a cardboard box filled with my personal belongings. Right behind her was Marcus, flanked by 2 corporate security guards. The entire office stopped working, staring at us in absolute silence. "Marcus, what is going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why is my badge deactivated?" Marcus looked at me with a cold, dead stare. He didn't look like the enthusiastic boss from Friday. He looked like a tyrant. "Alex, your services are no longer required by this company. You are being terminated effective immediately for violating company policy regarding intellectual property." I stared at him, completely paralyzed. "What? Intellectual property? I built that system. You promised me a promotion and equity." Marcus let out a loud, mocking laugh that echoed through the lobby. "You built it. Let's be real, Alex. You used company computers on company time using company electricity. Everything you coded belongs entirely to this corporation. I have already patented the software under my own name this morning. You have no rights to it, no equity, and no job. If you try to speak to the media, or if you attempt to file a frivolous lawsuit, my legal team will sue you into bankruptcy before you can even find a public defender. Now, take your box and get out of my building." I walked out of the building with my cardboard box, my mind racing. The sheer audacity of this man was staggering. He had stolen my life's work, stripped me of my livelihood, and humiliated me in front of everyone I worked with, all so he could look like a tech genius in front of his billionaire investor friends. He thought his corporate lawyers, and his massive bank account made him completely untouchable. He assumed I was just a powerless, defeated employee who would go home, cry, and accept my fate. But Marcus, in his complete and utter ignorance of how technology actually functions, had made a monumental, catastrophic error. He thought that because he had copy-pasted my codebase onto his corporate servers, he owned the entire ecosystem. He completely forgot that I am a systems architect. I don't build things that can be easily stolen without a safety net. When I was developing the software, the company's internal servers were notoriously unstable. They crashed constantly, which made testing the code a nightmare. To solve this problem, I had set up a completely private, encrypted cloud API gateway on a secure external server that was registered under my personal name, paid for with my personal credit card. This external server handled all the complex algorithmic processing, the security tokens, and the dynamic database routing. The code on the company server was essentially just a hollow shell, a steering wheel. The actual engine of the software was running on my personal server. Without a continuous, authenticated connection to my private cloud gateway, the software would run smoothly for a short period using cached data. But the moment it attempted a heavy, real-time database query, it would completely freeze, require a master administrator password, and lock down the entire system. Marcus didn't know this because he had never bothered to look at the underlying infrastructure. He just saw a beautiful user interface and thought he owned the world. I sat in my car, opened my laptop, connected to my private server, and looked at the live data logs. I could see the company server pinging my gateway every few seconds. I reached for my mouse, hovered over the master authorization switch, and realized I had a choice. I could shut it down right now. But if I did, Marcus would just hire a team of expensive programmers to try and reverse engineer my gateway before the big presentation. No, I wanted the consequences to hit him when the stakes were at their absolute highest. I wanted him to fall from the highest possible peak. I checked the financial news online and confirmed the date. Marcus was scheduled to pitch the software to a room full of elite venture capitalists in New York City in exactly 2 weeks. The minimum investment he was seeking was $15 million. I closed my laptop, smiled, and decided to wait. For the next 2 weeks, I did absolutely nothing. I enjoyed my sudden vacation, played video games, and monitored my server logs. I watched as Marcus's internal tech team ran basic tests on the software. It worked perfectly for them because I kept my private gateway open, feeding them cached data to ensure they suspected absolutely nothing. They truly believed they had a flawless, patented product ready to change the logistics world. The day of the big presentation finally arrived. Marcus had rented out a high-tech conference hall in a luxury skyscraper overlooking Manhattan. The room was packed with billionaire investors, industry tech executives, and prominent financial journalists. Marcus was in his absolute element, wearing a custom-tailored suit, pacing across a grand stage with a microphone attached to his lapel, soaking in the spotlight. I sat comfortably in my apartment 300 miles away, wearing sweatpants, with a cup of coffee in my hand and my laptop open on my desk. I had managed to gain access to a private livestream link of the presentation that a former coworker had secretly shared with me. On the video feed, I watched Marcus step up to the podium. A massive digital projector screen behind him lit up with the title, "The Future of Logistics Concept by Marcus." I watched him give a slick, rehearsed introductory speech, taking full, absolute credit for every single line of code I had written. He talked about his visionary genius and how he had spent years designing this revolutionary framework to solve the industry's greatest flaws. "And now, gentlemen," Marcus said into the microphone, his voice booming with unearned confidence, "I am going to show you a live, real-time demonstration of the software. We are going to connect directly to our active fleet database, process 10,000 simultaneous transit routes, and optimize our entire nationwide shipping matrix in less than 5 seconds. Watch the screen." Marcus pressed a button on his remote control. The screen shifted to the software's main dashboard. It looked beautiful. He clicked the button to initiate the massive database optimization sequence. That was my cue. With a single keystroke on my laptop, I revoked the company's server's security tokens, severed the connection to my private cloud gateway, and activated the system's hard lockdown protocol. On the live stream, the loading wheel on Marcus's massive projector screen spun once, twice, and then stopped. The beautiful user interface suddenly vanished, replaced by a stark, pitch-black screen. In the center of the black screen, a giant, neon-red warning box appeared with bold white text that read, "Critical system error. Authorization gateway offline. Enter master administrator credentials to prevent permanent database corruption." Marcus froze. The confident smile completely vanished from his face. He pressed the button on his remote again, but nothing happened. He walked over to the laptop on the podium and began frantically hitting the keyboard, but the red box remained locked in place. The room of billionaire investors fell into an uncomfortable, deadly silence. People began whispering, leaning over to look at their phones. A prominent venture capitalist in the front row frowned and raised his hand. "Marcus, is this part of the presentation? What is an authorization gateway?" Marcus's forehead was dripping with sweat. He wiped his face with a trembling hand and spoke nervously into his microphone. Please excuse this minor technical glitch, everyone. It seems our internal network is experiencing a temporary fluctuation. My tech team will have it resolved in just a second." Frantically whipped out his phone and called his lead office programmer, who was standing in the back of the auditorium. The programmer was furiously typing on his own laptop, his face pale with panic. I could see him shaking his head, looking completely terrified. He didn't have the master password. He didn't even know where the gateway was hosted. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, but I knew exactly who it was. I answered the call and put it on speakerphone. "Alex, Alex, you son of a bitch." Marcus hissed into the phone, his voice a panicked, desperate whisper as he huddled in the corner of the stage. "What did you do to my software? The system is completely locked down. Fix it right now." "I didn't do anything to your software, Marcus," I replied calmly, sipping my coffee. "Your software is sitting on your server. The problem is, your software needs my server to actually function. And since you terminated my services for violating intellectual property, I decided to terminate your server's access to my property. I will ruin you, Alex. I'll have you arrested for sabotage." He stammered, his voice cracking with pure terror as he glanced back at the room full of billionaires who were now actively getting up to leave the auditorium. "Good luck with that," I laughed. "Everything running on my cloud gateway is registered under my name, paid for by me, and completely independent of your company. There is no sabotage. I just turned off my own machine. If you want me to type in the master password and save your multi-million-dollar pitch, it's going to cost you." "How much?" Marcus gasped, completely defeated. "I want a cashier's check for $500,000 for my intellectual property, a signed contract granting me 50% of all future software royalties, and a public apology email sent to the entire company stating that I am the sole architect of this system. You have exactly 2 minutes before the database cache expires, and the entire shell on your server deletes itself permanently." Marcus looked back at the investors. The lead venture capitalist stood up, put on his coat, and walked toward the exit. Marcus's entire dream of becoming a tech billionaire was crumbling into dust in front of the financial elite. Fine, I'll do it. Just turn it back on." Marcus whimpered into the phone, completely broken. "Sign the contract and wire the initial funds first, Marcus. I'll be checking my bank account," I said, and hung up the phone. Marcus had no choice. He had to delay the presentation by 2 hours, claiming a server migration issue, while his corporate lawyers furiously drafted the legal settlement and transferred the $500,000 directly into my bank account to avoid a total system deletion. Once the money cleared, I typed in the master credentials. The system lit back up, and he managed to salvage a fraction of the investment he was initially seeking. But the damage to his reputation was completely irreversible. The Wall Street investors realized Marcus was completely technically incompetent and that he had tried to present a stolen system that he didn't even understand. They severely reduced their valuation of his company, and several key board members forced him to step down as CEO less than a month later. As for me, I used the $500,000 to start my own independent logistics software consultancy firm. I hired several of my talented former coworkers who were tired of Marcus's abuse, and we now license our systems properly to companies that actually respect human labor. Marcus wanted to use his corporate power and wealth to steal my life's work, but he forgot that in the modern world, a billionaire's empire is only as strong as the guy who writes the code.